Labrīt!
Good morning, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome in Riga at the third Eastern Partnership Summit. I am glad to see you here in such a number, representing a large variety of entrepreneurship areas. This forum is an important integral part of the Eastern Partnership, which speaks volumes of the practical side of the partnership, and it contributes greatly to the EU and Eastern Partnership's political dialogue. Venerable guests, in this month, Latvia marks the 25th anniversary of its restoration of independence. We have proved during this time that by purposeful reforms, one can achieve great things. The presidency responsibility of Latvia in the EU Council is evidence of this. We are capable of operating in changing conditions. We are strengthening ourselves in the traditional markets, and we are acquiring new export opportunities and directions. Making use of the participants in the European single market and our geographical location as well as experience, one of the priorities for Latvia is facilitation of cooperation with Eastern Partnership countries. Strengthening and deepening relationships with these countries has been a great interest of our country. For this reason, this is one of the priorities for Latvia during its presidency, and it will remain one also in the future. Latvia is ready to share its experience in making reforms with the countries that wish to learn from it. We offer European-level education for partner country students. We take pride in the fact that the number of foreign students in Latvia is continuously growing. This speaks volumes of the fact that education is one of the key export products of Latvia. Traditionally, Latvia has provided the trade relations between North, South, East, and West. Historically, Latvia has developed close trade relations with the Baltic states and Nordic neighbors, Finland, Sweden, and Norway, through developing a common trade and investment space. And this is where I see our great opportunity to go deeper into the EU framework. Within the context of the Eastern Partnership, this enables to enhance the trade and transport infrastructure connecting the Baltic Sea region with the Black Sea region. I think that our common force must facilitate a regional transport corridor in order to fit into the European and Asian multimodal connections. In this regard, I see both opportunities as well as necessity for cooperation with Central Asian countries, with which Latvia currently is actively developing mutually beneficial contacts. Honorable guests, your encouraging ideas and initiatives reflect themselves and manifest themselves in increasing economic indicators, as well as strengthen contacts between people and countries. I am sure that you have both ideas as well as advice for the EU member states and Eastern Partnership countries to grow closer and even more advantageous for all parties involved. Latvia is genuinely glad for this tremendous opportunity to use this for our common further growth. I think that this is one of the indicators that our contribution has been appreciated outside of the EU for the purpose of seeking new opportunities. I am so honored to see such high-level European Council and European Commission representatives and the President of the European Investment Bank, Eurobusiness, high representatives. Thank you for the Latvian Employers Confederation for the active engagement, as well as to the representatives of the Euro Chamber, and for the 650 representatives from 41 countries in total. If each of us of the present will make a tiny contribution here, this will be a tremendous gain for all of us. Peace is where development lives, where people see their future. The European Union, unfortunately, and especially the Eurozone, has witnessed stagnation during the recent years. This is a great opportunity by means of common work with Eastern Partnership countries to achieve good results in development, regardless of the current situation. This actual cooperation is necessary from all of the perspectives in order to ensure currency stability of all of the involved countries. We must do everything in order for direct business contacts to develop. Looking at how current account balances look like, it becomes clear that apart from Azerbaijan, direct investments are necessary. This is in our interests, and this lies in our hands. Let us be genuine. Latvia is ready to take the initiator's role and the representative's role in all of these countries. I wish you to have a successful forum and new, multilaterally beneficial, far-reaching cooperation projects. May we all succeed together. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. President. You talked there about strengthening and deepening that relation and underlined its importance. We're going to discuss today both how business can contribute to strengthening and deepening that relationship, and what needs to be done to ensure it can also benefit from that strengthening and deepening and attract that vital direct investment you talked about. Thank you so much. Thank you for your patronage today, and I know you're going to stay with us for this opening session, so it's great to have you with us. It's now my pleasure to give the floor to Vitalijs Gavrilovs, President of the Employers Confederation of Latvia, Vice President of Business Europe, and Co-Chair of the National Tripartite Cooperation Council of Latvia. Welcome, sir. Over to you.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, Your Excellencies, esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor to welcome you in Riga today on behalf of the Employer Confederation of Latvia and Business Europe in the third Eastern Partnership Business Forum. During the last decade, the Eastern Partnership and European neighborhood policy have become increasingly important within the European agenda. Today, here more than 600 business and political leaders from 41 countries have come together to discuss ways to strengthen cooperation between the EU and the 6 Eastern Partners countries: Armenia, Azerbaijan, Belarus, Georgia, Republic of Moldova and Ukraine. Enhance trade, economic and social relations, in other words, take the Eastern Partnership forward. What prevents us from doing that? I would like to say 3 main issues. First, the economic challenges of losing competitiveness resulting in decreasing investment, stagnant employment, and insufficiently predictable business environment. Second, political challenges, creating additional disbalances and unnecessary disturbances among our countries and around the world. Third, there is a very low level understanding among the Eastern partner countries on the role of civil society organization, especially social partner organization, in creating strong and responsible private-public dialogue. If you find a solution to all three challenges, I believe we can move not only the Eastern Partnership forward, we can create completely new grounds for economic growth around Europe, its neighborhood, and beyond. Employers' Confederation of Latvia has always worked towards promoting new opportunity for strengthening business cooperation between the EU and the 6 Eastern European partners countries. Since 2009, 1 year before Declaration of Eastern Partnership was signed, we have set up bilateral business cooperation council with Armenia, Azerbaijan, Belarus, Georgia, and Ukraine, strengthening business relationship and public-private dialogue in a systematic and industrialized manner. We do believe that systematic dialogue in promotion of favorable investment and business environment in EU member states and Eastern European partner countries to support trade and business opportunity can apply on the Eastern scale as well, on European scale as well. For example, it can be done by creating and functioning of Eastern Partnership Business Cooperation Council to promote business networking and new opportunity for business links between the EU and the 6 Eastern European partners countries also, in the context of cooperation with other countries interested in the region. We are in a situation when investment climate in Europe makes us hope for better. The economic growth is slowing down and regions are being depopulated due to economic reasons. In this situation, there is no other way as to work towards long-term, stable, pragmatic business cooperation, investment promotion, and trade across borders in order to benefit in the context of the international trading system. Today, during the Business Forum, possibility for investment and cooperation will be explored in areas such as energy, digital economy, transport, and banking. They are key sectors which, with the right support, can leverage growth and jobs both in the EU and the Eastern European partners. The role of employees' organization in promoting a viable business environment through strong public-private dialogue will also be discussed today. I am fully convinced that only through organized business society and complete public-private dialogue, constant and predictable growth is possible. There is no other better approach to achieve growth and welfare. Compared to previous business forum, I want to emphasize that it is very important that this year the third Eastern Partnership Business Forum is going to explore the prospects of doing business within and beyond the region of Eastern European Partnership. Living in isolation from the rest of the world, it is not an option for the Eastern European partners country. The Eastern Partnership offers instruments that can allow companies in the 6 countries to compete not only in the European Union, but at the global level. At the same time, I am sure that this partnership brings new opportunity for the European businesses as well, and we have to be able to make use of them. We emphasize the importance of trade between the European Union and the Eastern partner countries, as well as among the Eastern partners countries themselves and their own neighbors, as a vector for growth, job creation, and economical and political stability. It is time to reopen free and fair trade among all the Eastern Partnership countries, the European Union, and beyond, using the full potential of the perspective, transatlantic trade and investment partnership, and other international trade regime, like from 1st of January, it's Euro-Asian Economical Union. Before passing the floor to our strategic partner from the European Investment Bank, President here is, and the employer group of European Economic Social Committee, Group 1 President is here. As representative of the business community, I would like to briefly share our expectation from the third Eastern Partnership Business Forum. We certainly recall that the main goal of the Eastern Partnership is to bring the Eastern partner countries closer to the European Union through political association, economic integration, increased mobility, and enhanced contact among people in a framework of solidarity, common value, where the peace is number one, cross-border cooperation, and security. Besides on that, our main expectations are, first, acknowledging with honesty the areas in which the Eastern Partnership has delivered and the areas it has not delivered so far, and with a view to improving the partnership as a whole. Second, exploring ways to make full use of the existing Eastern Partnership instrument, as well as identifying the right tool for the right purpose, and therefore allowing for more tailor-made solution. Third, recognizing the role of business in the promotion of the Eastern Partnership, which should be translated in institutionalization and regular participation of the private sector in the decision-making process. The role of social partner in this context is critical. Promoting trade as a driver for growth and jobs in the EU and Eastern Partner and beyond. And last, and of course, contributing to economic growth and stability in the region, paving the way for reform and improved competitiveness, which can provide tangible result exceeding the current economical activity. I look forward to the discussion during the day and to delivering the recommendation of the Business Forum to the political leader tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Mr. Gavrilovs, thank you so much for that passionate evocation of the importance of cooperation. There is no other way. We will also talk about that key role of the social partners, the systematic dialogue that you talked of. It is now my pleasure to give the floor to Werner Hoyer, President of the European Investment Bank. Mr. President, thank you so much for being with us, and the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, members of the European and national parliaments, ministers, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure and honor for me to be here today and to participate in the introductory session of the Eastern Partnership Business Forum and tomorrow in the summit that will take place in Riga. Could there be a better place than to do it here? With the success that Latvia can point at, with the courage, the resolve, and the success with which this country has taken up all the opportunities which opened up 25 years and 6 months ago when the Berlin Wall fell. So congratulations on these successes, and many, many thanks for the leadership that you give us in the European Union presently as Presidency of the European Union. 40 more days, Mr. President, and it's over, and you can relax. Thank you for what has been achieved so far. 2 years ago in Vilnius, the second Eastern Partnership Business Forum brought together over 400 key CEOs, bankers, and investors. Their call was strong but simple. Business potential for closer cooperation among European countries remains enormous. Therefore, investment has to continue, and trade has to be enhanced. I'm delighted to see so many of you, even more than in Vilnius, when I can firmly say that the European Investment Bank has listened to that call, and we have acted. Last year only, we signed over €1 billion of new operations in the Eastern Partnership countries, and this brings our lending in the region over the last couple of years to well over €4.4 billion. EIB loans are impact-driven, financing investments by hundreds of small and medium businesses right across the region. We're also supporting large-scale investments, vital for economies to underpin industrial growth and sustain trade relationships. Few examples come to my mind. Operations such as the support for the wine sector in Moldova, very important. The construction of electricity lines in Ukraine, or the rehabilitation of the East-West Highway in Georgia. Our projects have a concrete impact in favor of the association agreement countries and the people in these countries. Meanwhile, we also finance projects such as the border crossing infrastructure in Armenia, or supporting the people of Azerbaijan through our loans for small and medium-sized enterprises. The Vilnius Forum also called on partners, including the European Investment Bank, the EU Bank, to stay in the forefront of actions which the EU and its institutions were taking to assist the transformation of the Eastern Partnership countries. Here too, we have listened and we have acted. Perhaps the clearest example is EIB's support for Ukraine. In March last year, we have offered to double the planned lending volume in Ukraine, up to 3 billion until 2016, as part of the European Union's package of 11 billion euros to support the country. In order to meet this commitment, we have created a task force to Ukraine with additional staff and additional budget resources, which will enable a fast absorption and implementation of these loans towards improving the conditions for the people. We are advancing well on that promise, and 1.3 billion loans have already been granted over the past 2 years. The Business Forum today is an important occasion to take stock of achievements, such as these made by the EU Bank, together with all the members of the Eastern Partnership. But it's above all an occasion to look forward. You have quite some challenging topics on your agenda today. To identify what more is needed and what more can be done to support businesses in all sectors in this dynamic context. It gives me great pleasure to announce that later today EIB will be signing a declaration of intent with Georgia regarding operations under the bank's new DCFTA facility established in partnership with the European Union and EBRD. This facility, the facility to support the deep and comprehensive free trade areas, is an innovative package which will provide loans, guarantees and technical advice, very important also technical advice, in support of Georgian, Moldovan and Ukrainian businesses to help them take advantage of the new DCFTA with the EU. In total, some 3 billion euros of investments could be supported by the package based on grants of over 200 million euros provided by the European Union. In Moldova, wine producers and horticultural businesses are already benefiting from similar support, and we are looking forward to extending such operations to more partner countries. I will conclude by reassuring that the EU Bank will continue its sustained commitment to supporting growth in the Eastern Partnership countries. With a mandate of almost 5 billion euro for investment in the Eastern neighbourhood in the present multilateral financial framework, as well as additional funds from our own resources, the EU Bank will continue to provide financing advisory services to meet the ever-changing needs of the region. It is therefore our pleasure to have been invited to support as strategic partner this third Eastern Partnership Business Forum. I take the opportunity to thank the co-organizers, the Latvian Presidency, LDDK and Business Europe for their excellent collaboration during the preparation of the event, and I wish all of you a productive and enriching day. Thank you very much.
President Hoyer, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much, Mr. President, and thank you for your support for this event. And as the President says, that business potential remains enormous and the investment must continue, the trade be enhanced. We will discuss how to create the best possible conditions to do that and the key role played by the EIB and other international financial institutions in that later on. But now it is my pleasure to give the floor to our final opening speaker, Jacek Krawczyk, who is President of the Employers Group in the European Economic and Social Committee. A very warm welcome to you, sir. Over to you.
Good morning, Excellency President and Commissioner, Ministers, dear guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is my privilege to be here as a co-organizer of the first business summit in Sopot some years ago, and active supporter of the second with our colleagues from Lithuania present here as well, also from our group, and congratulate Vitālijs and his organization organizing the third one, which I believe today, as I can see, is a great success already because it managed to bring so many people to this place to discuss Eastern Partnership. Particularly proud as a Polish person, and Poland has had a very great role trying to create this Eastern Partnership initiative some years ago. Dear friends, Eastern Partnership has started in a little bit different circumstances, politically speaking. Now we have a different reality, and I think it's our duty to respond to that in a proper way. The conclusions of the two previous summits should be reflected upon as well, and they should become our guiding principles for this summit as well. We have met representatives of all 6 members of the countries that are part of the Eastern Partnership project, and I believe that they should be still put in the focus. But of course I agree with the initiative taken by Vitālijs and the Latvian presidency to go beyond that, and I believe that looking towards Asian countries is an excellent idea. Both countries, Georgia and Moldova, have already experienced good positive results of getting closer to European markets. I do hope, and I sincerely believe, that 1st of January will be the date for Ukraine also to enter fully in DCFTA that we have signed already. And I welcome the statement by the Commissioner President, also welcome the statement that I heard from Mr. Kinach lately in the European Business Summit in Brussels, where we spoke together that European and Ukrainian business community is looking forward for the 1st of January to be unconditionally the date for Ukraine to join benefits of the DCFTA. Access to European markets is important, I believe, but it's also important to keep a right perspective on the further reforms that need to be performed in the Eastern Partnership countries. Too much regulation, not enough economic freedom, not enough modern technology, not enough infrastructure, not enough connection to the world. These are the things that we need to work further, but in the first place, we have to put much more attention to the entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurs, employers are those who can make a difference. And in this complicated political reality, getting closer on economic cooperation is the best way forward for everybody to improve and for everybody to take benefits of that joint cooperation. Our committee is a consultative body of the EU, so we do negotiate, we dialogue with different stakeholders. And let me share my concerns, and this is what I'm coming with mainly here today, to say that we have seen in the last months a very worrying tendency that employers and entrepreneurs in particular are not being equally treated throughout the process of setting up civil society platforms that are necessary for implementation of association agreements and DCFTAs. There is no any reason why entrepreneurs, employers should be excluded from the civil dialogue in Eastern Partnership countries. And our group is absolutely opposing this tendency. Employers, entrepreneurs are part of the civil society as much as unions and as much as NGOs. And none of them can claim exclusivity to represent civil society. That is a fundamental principle that we in the European Union and also in the European Economic Social Committee consider as necessary prerequisite for the fair and open civil dialogue. But also for the social dialogue, discussion between employers and employees, and I believe today my friend Markuss will discuss this in length, so I will not do this job for him. But it's important that the proper level of social dialogue is maintained, not only to agree between unions and employers, but also to convince the public, to convince society for the changes that need to happen. And for that, our committee is prepared and ready, and our group is prepared and ready to assist the process. We have done that throughout the years with all new members of the European Union. We have done also with all the newly, already 11 years ago, entering countries. We have experienced how to bring civil society to the scene of the European Union social, but mainly civil dialogue. To close, I would like to say the following. It is important that we meet regularly when the political summits are being organized. But I think we should insist as a business community that whenever we have an upcoming Eastern Partnership Summit, the business summit should be organized as well. That should become our new tradition. I think it's very important that the effort is being made for our friends from Eastern Partnership countries to come and discuss with us, with everybody, and among themselves, the progress achieved, the problems that have occurred. And finally, I'd like to congratulate LDDK. I'd like to congratulate the Presidency, but also all of you to coming over here. I wish you a very fruitful day, and thank you very much for having us, the European Economic Social Committee, particularly Employers Group, to be a strategic partner to that event. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Krawczyk, and thank you also for your support for this forum, the importance of which you underlined, and the importance of business, the employer's voice, the entrepreneur's voice in these conversations. Okay, that brings our opening speeches to an end, and we are going to move to our first panel debate here in plenary on political and economic perspectives of the Eastern Partnership. The President began by underlining how important it was to strengthen and deepen relations. What we want to do in this session is to assess the progress made to date under the Eastern Partnership from a business perspective, prospects for future cooperation, how effective have those tools that have been available to foster that cooperation been to date, what lessons do we learn, and to begin to identify what needs to be done to realise the full potential of the partnership to boost business links between the EU and partner countries, and between partner countries and the rest of the world, and thus strengthen cooperation and enable the business community to play its part in helping to reach the partnership's wider goals. Let me bring our panel onto the stage to discuss this. I am delighted to welcome, and please do come up as I introduce you, Dana Reizniece-Ozola, who is Minister of Economy in the Republic of Latvia. A very warm welcome, Minister. Your seat is in the middle there. Ladies and gentlemen, the Minister, please welcome her. Johannes Hahn, European Commissioner for European Neighbourhood Policy and Enlargement Negotiations. Commissioner, warm welcome to you too. Please do come and take your seat next to the Minister. Alexander Zaborovskiy, First Deputy Minister of Economy from the Republic of Belarus. A very warm welcome to you as well. Markuss, Director General of Business Europe. Welcome, Markuss. Elgua Meladze, President of the Georgian Employers Association. Very warm welcome. Elgua, hello, welcome. And Professor Dr. Rainer Lindner, Managing Director of the German Business Committee on Eastern European Economic Relations, Ostausschuss. Welcome to you, Professor. So, the way this is going to work, ladies and gentlemen, is I've asked our panel not to make any opening statements. I'm going to ask them a few questions to get started, and then I hope there will be time to come out to all of you for a few brief questions and comments a bit later. But let's dive straight in, and as I say, a very warm welcome to all of you. Minister, if I could start with you. Mr. Gavrilovs said in his opening speech, we need to acknowledge where the partnership has and has not delivered. From your perspective, how would you assess the role played by the partnership to date, both from a political and an economic perspective, a business perspective, and what for you are the key challenges if we're going to realise all that enormous potential that President Hoyer talked about? So how are we doing, and what are the challenges ahead? There is a microphone in front of you. I think you need to switch. Yeah, that's it.
I think the most important thing is that the European Union has understood that you are as strong as your weakest point is. And if you talk about the European Union, then it's understandable that it's not only us, it's also our neighboring countries. And we see great potential also in higher and stronger business cooperation within them. And that is why the Eastern Partnership has been started in 2009. And since that, many good things have happened. 3 association agreements, 2 DSFTAs, but a lot of things have to be done, and this is the point when we have to draw the line and understand that one size fits all doesn't really work, and the individual and tailor-made approach has to be followed in further cooperation with the Eastern Partnership countries, because yes, we know that liberalization of the markets, it is really for the strong ones, and we shouldn't push the countries politically. It is actually the if I would say it's actually the business that is the center of the mass. If we talk about the decision making for the politicians, because if the business will see that they are strong enough to compete on the open market, then it would be easier also for the politicians to take the decisions towards the West. And I think this is the thing that we have to be honest about and understand, drafting further political agenda as well.
Okay, thank you very much. And we can come back to what that tailor-made, more tailor-made approach will mean in practice, I hope, during the discussion. But Commissioner, from your perspective, the achievement to date, a lot has been done, but a lot has to be done. Would you agree with that? And what do you see as the key challenges ahead, particularly now that you have launched your review of European neighbourhood policy more broadly? How do you see the challenge now?
First of all, good morning to everybody. Jackie, you're totally right, and I think this should be exactly the aim of this summit and all the events, that it's a kind of stock-taking, to look what has been achieved and what are the challenges ahead. And I think such an event is always an opportunity to look back, but indeed to agree what should be done. And as the Minister has said, we have achieved a lot, having now these DCFTAs with 2.5 countries, and by January next year it will be the second half with Ukraine, meaning that the agreement will come into force totally. And this is exactly what we have to do. It's now about implementation, and that's why I'm happy to say that we can now offer to these 3 countries altogether around 200 million euro in the next coming of years in order to trigger loans and guarantees for SMEs, I would say in the magnitude of around 2 billion euro, in order to help them to accommodate with the challenges of a DCFTA and to push the economy and to make exactly what is the founding idea of the European Union. Having increased economic ties is the best guarantee to have peace, to have stability, to have prosperity in a region. And this is what we have to do in the next future years, and the same applies for the other countries of the Eastern Neighbourhood Partnership. And as also the Minister said, it's about a tailor-made approach. We have to see what is possible for the different or the individual countries to match it with the European interests, and then we have to go forward. And I think it's important to have a very pragmatic approach, and this is in business community something which is well understood.
Thank you very much indeed. First Deputy Minister, from your perspective, from a partner country perspective, where has the partnership delivered? Where hasn't it for you? And how do you see the challenge ahead? Please.
Good morning, colleagues. I want to say that from yesterday's discussions with our colleagues from business union, a lot of very important questions were raised, and very important thing is the rise of risks. Risks in Europe, risks that are not good for long-term growth, are not good for sustainable growth. And during welcome speeches, our Mr. President, our colleagues indicated what can we do to eliminate these risks. And we think that business component of Eastern Partnership, it's very important dimension where we can to discuss opportunities, possibilities to create new joint ventures, to create new projects. And from Belarus perspective, we think that economic dimension, economic part of the partnership should be the flagman part of this partnership. I agree with statements that Mr. Hahn said that we should see the possibilities to more tailored approach for every country, and understanding these challenges that we have in the region, we should find these possibilities to eliminate risks. Finding these opportunities together, we can create more business-friendly environment.
Okay, thank you very much. And Markuss, if I could ask you from Business Europe's perspective, has the partnership delivered? Is it delivering? What do you see as the key challenges ahead?
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Jackie, before coming to a question, let me thank our Latvian friends and all partners, and certainly our Latvian Business Federation, LDDK, for the organization. And I must say I'm always very impressed, also being coming from a small member state, what small member states are always able to do in the presidency. And this goes for the presidency, and this goes for our Latvian member. And this is important because the European Union is not about Brussels alone, and it's very important. So really thank you for this. Coming to your question, Jacki, well, I think, as the Commission and as the ministers have said, I mean, we are at the moment of stock taking. I mean, it's the third summit, of course. We hope that we won't have the same level of surprises we had at the second summit, but I think we are on a stable development now. And even so, some of us would have liked to see more progress at the stage we are playing now. I think the merit of this whole process is it has deeply improved and deepened, first of all, the communication between the European Union and the 6 Eastern Partnership countries, and also the communication between the partnership countries, the 6 Eastern Partnership countries as such. And this is a big step forward. And of course, you can always go through the list, what would you like to achieve, what have we achieved, what is next, and so on. But at the same time, if you think back, where have we been before Sopot, I think there is a progress in the naturally addressing a number of things. And of course, these agreements we have done, including these deep and comprehensive FTAs, is a step forward. Well, being from business, and business is always critical, of course, I also have to raise the critical points. I mean, there is, of course, not always the level of progress in the reform agenda we would have expected in all Eastern Partnership countries. I mean, there is still points to be tackled in order to improve the investment climate. Not all of the association agreements have been signed, and where they have been signed, Commission has mentioned it, not everything has come into full application. And of course, more needs to be done to bring our partners closer to the EU standards, closer to the legislation, and to provide for the security we would need to invest more in these countries. But again, I think we have to acknowledge what has been done. We have to take stock, and then we have to see what we need to do next. And business certainly has a role to play here, because at the end of the day, it is about doing business together. It's about doing trade. It's about investing. This is what is bringing us forward. And maybe finishing on an idea my friend Jacek Krawczyk was raising. It's also very much about the social dialogue. Because you need to have this structured dialogue, but you also need to have the capacities. You have to have the bodies that are there in order to play this assisting role. And this is also something we can see in the European Union. I mean, if you look at the program countries, it is those countries who had a more functioning social dialogue who were able to implement the message more rapidly than the others, and where the reforms and the necessary step worked out better than in those where it didn't work. We are ready to invest in this, and I come to the end. For instance, we work very well with our partners, our Ukrainian friends. They now have an office in Brussels in our building, and I think this is very important. We need to make progress, and we need to build the institutions in order to have the playing ground we need to bring this cooperation to fruition.
Thank you, and we will come back in our next session when we'll talk about the role of business associations, organisations in driving that reform agenda as much as in benefiting from it later on, a little bit more detail, but I'd like to explore it with you if we have time. Dr. Meladze, from your perspective, where is the balance sheet for you? How much have we achieved, and what is the big challenge for the future for you? Please.
Спасибо. В первую очередь я хочу
Thank you. First of all, I would like to greet everyone. I represent the Georgian Employees Association, and I'm very happy that we have this possibility to work for 3 years with our partners from the European Union and 6 countries of the Eastern Partnership, and we are very happy we have this opportunity to share our experience, which is very helpful. First of all, the Eastern Partnership is a very important mechanism which allows strengthening relations with the countries, member states of the European Union. Serious work has been done in terms of reforms by the Georgian government. We Of course, we are expecting great improvements in business and business investment climate. We are expecting new investments, and on the other hand, we as a business association have a very important task, readiness of business of Georgian companies to enter the European market. It means new regulations, new standards, and the aim of our organization and financial institutions is to help Georgian companies in this respect and to help them comply with the European standards.
So that they would implement the regulations, so that when we do have this serious opportunity to enter European market, they would be able to enter it. Today, we have already mentioned that there will be a very serious agreement signed with Georgian government about new programs, and I would like to know that in this relation, we have been working a lot with the government. That is one of the very specific results.
And we'll come back again to that implementation challenge and what additional help will be needed. We've already talked about the help that needs to be provided to meet the challenges of implementation. But before we do that, Professor Lindner, from your perspective, I think I could sum up the panel so far as very important progress. We are a long way forward, and one must not underestimate the importance, as Markuss was saying, for example, of that improved communication, etc., but a lot more to be done. Would you agree with that? And what for you is the key challenge for the future?
Of course, I agree. I think it's very important to learn the lessons, and I think the Commission is doing a lot in summing up what has been done in the recent years. I think the very important result of that assessment is a certain kind of declusterization of the group of countries, the individualization of the approaches to handle every country on an individual basis. And looking more into the business world, I have to say that this first period of Eastern Partnership agenda comes together with a crisis in economy. So we face a lot of bad challenges for the business in the countries itself. We are losing money in the countries. Unfortunately, I have to say that the Ukrainian crisis is a challenging issue also for the present companies in those countries. For instance, the export of German business into Ukraine in the last year went down by 35%. Which is a lot, and of course I think we have to learn also the lessons how to come back in a certain communication with Russia. It's very important also for those countries not to lose Russia as a trading partner. It's I think also a new challenge for the EP, for European partnership policy, to find a way of getting into a certain communication with Russia. I think it's the trilateral format, the trilateral talks that are ongoing already inside the Commission, for instance, with Ukraine and Russia, is a first step towards this. I have to say we face an investment crisis as well in the region as a whole, and this is something that we really feel as a business, and we need to find out what kind of opportunities are in those countries, what kind of positive aspects we see. And of course we need the visa-free regime with those countries. Without that, and this is I think a very big expectation from the business to the Commission in the next years, visa-free regime with all the EP countries and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Commissioner, if I could just ask you, in terms of, I mentioned at the beginning, the review of European neighbourhood policy that is underway. We've already heard calls for, and you've said it yourself, a tailor-made approach. Can you just outline for us what for you do you think are the most important elements of that review and what impact it is likely to have on the Eastern Partnership and from a business perspective?
Yeah, once again, we are just in between of this review process. We have launched it in the beginning of March. The public consultation will end up by June, and then we will present our communication end of October, beginning of November. But I would say the four main elements, the four keywords are differentiation, which means indeed we need a tailor-made solution for our relationship with all our neighbors. And having in mind it's not only the 6 eastern neighbors, but also a very heterogeneous group of 11 southern neighbors coming from theoretically today Syria till Morocco. So the range is very wide of individual assessments and finally really tailor-made solutions how we can shape the cooperation. So this is very important, and take once again the eastern neighbors. Here we have 3 with already a DCFTA. We have just, and this is another, so to say, key element, flexibility. We have to be flexible in terms of financial support, because in Europe we are talking about a multi-annual financial framework which lasts from 2014 to 2020, and it's clear that within 7 years many things can happen, and therefore we have to be flexible, but also flexible in terms of the way we shape the contractual structure with our neighbors. And just yesterday I received from the foreign minister from Azerbaijan a position paper how Azerbaijan would what's the idea of Azerbaijan to have this special cooperation with Europe. And we are just having completed the screening exercise with Armenia to see what is possible. So this is about flexibility. The third is we have to concentrate on a few areas like energy, security, economic development, of course. And finally, it's about ownership. Partnership means not it's a one-way road, but it's about a mutual cooperation in our joint interests and for joint benefits.
Thank you. And Minister, if I could ask you, the Council, in its first reaction to the communication from the Commission in April, emphasised the importance of a demand and interest-driven approach, was the phrase used, to increase this sense of ownership. What do you think that will mean in practice? How important is this sense of shared ownership? And I'd like also from First Deputy Minister to have what does it mean, and how do we really develop that sense of shared ownership? Minister first, and then First Deputy Minister.
We as a country that recently has also gone through the transformation process of our economy, transforming it from the command economy to the market-driven one, we evaluate very highly the importance of the foreign direct investment, and all the means that help to increase the share of the foreign direct investment are good. But if it's the shared ownership, then this might be one of the tools, one of the means how to increase also the competitiveness of the local business, which is a critical issue. It's not only the infrastructure or funding coming also from the European Union for the infrastructure development. It's not only the money coming now from the EU to the SMEs, competitiveness increase. The best way how to increase the competitiveness of the local companies is really taking the experience of the European business people on practice. I mean, working hands-on, and that's the easiest way how to implement also the new regulations, the new getting in compliance with the new demands that the working on the European market would require.
Thank you. First Deputy Minister, this question of ownership, and I'm thinking here going back to that role of the business community, building shared ownership really does. To do that, you need the business community to be involved, to be cooperating bilaterally, multilaterally. It's a very important part of the equation, isn't it?
I agree, but I want to show from the state dimension of the ownership. Belarus is a predictable, reliable and stable partner for the European Union. And in this dialogue with Europe, we show this stability and predictability, and we have very clear track. And we are ready to go and to cooperate with our European partners, with European institutions, at the way that they are ready to cooperate with Belarus. We think that general good infrastructure, human capital and political stability, these are important competitive advantages of Belarus, and of course we will continue to consistently strengthen them. We strongly intend to focus on open economy and attracting foreign investment, implementing structural reforms, supporting private sector. It's all these issues that are under discussion and that are implemented in our country. And this is a field for cooperation with Europe. This is a field for supporting on the level of European Union and on the level of Belarus government to create necessary legislation, to create agreement, to support the possibility for business to cooperate.
Thank you. Dr. Meladze, if I could just ask you, in terms of the tools to support this cooperation, and we've talked about more tailor-made approaches, fitting aspirations of countries differently, just on the other side of that, the implementation challenge of the deep and comprehensive free trade agreements has already been underlined. Do you think we will need additional instruments to help business make that transformation? What sort of help, support do you think will be needed as we move into this implementation phase and go from provisional application to full application?
DCFTA – это один из важных системных механизмов.
DCFTA is one of the most important systematic mechanisms for our country. As we already said, with this respect, the government, the state has a program, but as we are a business organization, then we have our own mechanisms for that. I would like to note that the development of a private sector, the development of business in the country is being supported by specific state programs, and it gives us the opportunity to create companies oriented to new technologies, oriented to new standards, and according to all the requirements of the EU. Likewise, we have this position that in close cooperation with our colleagues, and we have already had this experience with Latvian and German organizations of employers, we have to have the opportunities that from our part we would be able to help all the Georgian companies when they will face European market, so that their competitiveness would be on the correct level. That's a very important issue. That's an issue that worries us, business people.
To you in terms of implementation, and we heard from President Hoyer also earlier about the role the European Investment Bank has played in terms of supporting entrepreneurship, unlocking that potential, helping with key infrastructure. Do you think additional support is going to be needed to enable the business community to meet the challenges and make the most of the opportunities when it comes to the DCFTAs?
Well, I mean, you stressed it. I think a lot is done by many. I mean, first we have the European Commission doing a very good job, and the technical assistance specifically. We have the EIB doing a lot. I think the most important fields is of course in infrastructure and also access to finance here. But of course in certain fields we will need a little more clarity. And I mean, one side, I've stressed it already, is of course to provide for the security, the foreseeability, the rule of law. I mean, this is the one side, it's the reform side. The other side is also to get a little more clarity about the opportunities and information, what it takes. And Professor Lindner has stressed it, of course, it's not the easiest moment. I mean, it's not the easiest moment to, I mean, we've seen an era when there was this bonanza idea of going to Central and Eastern Europe, and where it was the total logical next step to go beyond. Of course, this mood is gone for the time being, because due to the crisis, things have become more difficult, and many companies are in a consolidation phase as far as these markets is concerned. But at the same time, I still think there's major opportunities. But in some cases, we'll need more information, more security. Where is possibilities to invest? Under what conditions? How stable, and so on. So I think there is still a lot to do in this field. But as we have seen in the European economy overall, I mean, it's getting a little bit better now. Of course, a lot thanks to external factors, but still, I mean, I think we should not underestimate that the figures are getting a little bit better. And opportunities might come back rapidly, so we'd better be prepared.
Absolutely. Don't wait till they're there, because you won't be able to seize the boat. I'm coming out to all of you in a minute, but Professor Lindner, from the point of view of this question of shared ownership and the support that the business community means, and I'm thinking here of a phrase from the Commission communication where it talked about moving from more of a donor to an investment dynamic, i.e. that there is a very active role played by partners, this equal partnership principle. How do we make that happen in practice? What is the challenge, and how important do you think it is?
So I think what is really key is to support the younger generation in those countries, and that is something that we do very concretely. I want just to inform you that we next week start with an internship program for young Ukrainian managers to come to German companies for 3 or 6 months. I think it's very important to invest in the brains and hearts of young managers, future leaders of their businesses. I think this is a very concrete step and a concrete help. And I think for the Commission, I think the major challenge is how to make sure that the future ENP is no longer a policy of keeping the distance. It's no longer a policy of keeping the distance with those countries, rather than a policy of integration. ENP has a major, obstacle from the very beginning, that it was not about membership, and this is something that countries feel as a certain obstacle in the future of their societies. If you ask people from Poland or other countries whether they would be fine with those approaches in the years after 2000. I think they needed at that time the clear perspective for the future of their societies, and that's why I think ENP should be rather a policy of integration than a policy of just neighborhood. I think Commissioner Hahn is rightly when he's mentioning the approach of the neighbors. So also to include the neighborhoods beyond, and that is why I think it's very important to address the younger generation, to address visa-free regime, and to make sure that our companies, and you're right, they do at the moment a very strong assessment whether to leave the countries, for instance Ukraine, or to stay. And this is true for other countries of EP as well, because investments need stability. The Russians would say, "Деньги любят тишина."
You'll have to translate for me.
So money likes stability. And that is why I think we really need to have to look into those societies. Our companies should stay there. If they leave once and look for other directions, they will not come back. And that is something I think we really should.
But when we talk about, and Commissioner, I will come out to the audience, but a very brief response from you. When we talk about this tailor-made, he's saying there, you have to match the aspirations of those countries who really do want to integrate. But on the other side, you've got other countries that, for the moment at least, don't want to integrate, certainly institutionally more, want to cooperate, want to get the economic benefits. Can you just reply to that point, because I think it is always the elephant in the room, whether you give those who are aspirant for closer integration more of a promise for the future, and if not, why not? Just briefly pick up on that, and then I'll go out to the room. So in differentiation, how far do we go on either end, as it were?
Well, it depends primarily on the partner country itself, what is, so to say, the interest and how deep integration or approximation to European Union should happen. And we are ready, we are open, but of course certain conditions have to be met, and it's our task, and I understood and understand, and this is clear that, for instance, a visa-free regime is something very important, in particular also for a business community, that business people can travel around with any problems, and we are ready to deliver on that, but of course not, so to say, on any costs. But I'm pretty sure that by the end of this year, in particular if it comes to Ukraine and Georgia, if they can deliver on the few remaining open issues, the Commission can report very positive by the end of the year, and I hope then one of the deliverables are already achieved.
Thank you. I'd like to come back on the whole role of the business community and how to get this systematic dialogue that we talked about, this making sure that that key role of the social partners in building this cooperation is realised in a moment. But let's see if there are any questions from our audience. Does anybody have a question for our panel at the moment, or are you happy for me to go on grilling them? Okay, for the moment, they're just enjoying the pleasure of me grilling you. So just in terms, it's true, yes, in terms of the dialogue between political leaders and the business community, we heard now this business forum is becoming a regular part of these summits happening beforehand. But I just wonder, in terms of the future, is the dialogue for all of you systematic enough? Is it regular enough? And if it isn't, what do we need to do? We will, of course, I hope, talk about this more when we talk also in the next panel about the role of business associations. But Markuss, perhaps a perspective from you first on this question. What can we do? It is so important. It's been said by the Council, again I mentioned them, we must broaden the EU's engagement with the business community. What does that mean in practice, and why does it matter so much?
Well, why does it matter? Because at the end it's about business. I mean, these corporations will, of course, we need to provide for the framework, but these corporations will work in the long run if we manage to have good investment and trade relationships. So this is the most important. And it is important as well, as we see inside the European Union, that the dialogue with the social partners is of growing importance. The new Commission specifically pays a lot of attention to this. All major projects are discussed with the social partners, be it energy policy, be it better regulation, be it investment package, and so on and so on. And I think there's merit in this. So of course it is also about investment, about capacity building. And well, as you see, I mean the business summit is a good opportunity, and it is very precious that many representatives of the Commission and of the Council and others join us here, and we have a good dialogue. At the same time, of course, not as far as the person here is concerned, sometimes it is a little ad hoc. So of course, to give the dialogue in between these biannual summits a certain structure would not be a mistake. So to say, in order to be able that we in between can create for the substance to be able to harvest hopefully in 2 years.
I like your expression, would not be a mistake. Nice way of putting it. Let's get some more business perspectives, and then I'll come back to our politicians on this. Professor Lindner, from your point of view, if it would not be a mistake to have more regular contacts and less of the ad hoc, how do we do it most effectively? Would you agree that more is needed? And I'm talking now not just about the cooperation between the business community in different countries, but between the business community and the politicians. Is this enough? Do we need more?
Your first question was about systematic approaches.
Yeah.
I want to stress the first thing that we really need to check to solve is the Ukrainian conflict. Without the resolvement of that war, we cannot go on in the neighborhood at all, because it affects all the region and affects the behaving of Russia a lot. So we need to address and we need to solve the problem following the Minsk II format. This is the first thing that businesses is looking for. The second is how to tackle the internal communication issues. If you take Moldova, how to come across with the Transnistrian issue. If you take Georgia, how to solve the internal problem with the occupied territories, Abkhazia, South Ossetia. So this is a combining factor, unfortunately, that almost all except Belarus countries in the EP world are facing those internal problems with occupied territories, Crimea, Eastern Ukraine, you name it. So this is the second issue, to solve the internal issues. It is something that the business is looking for as well. Okay, business is looking for it, but business can't
do much about solving those things. So what does business do?
Well, of course.
Or you think it can help?
I mean, if you, for instance, start to open up communication between the chambers of commerce, between, for instance, Moldova and Transnistria, if you start channeling, on the business level, those conflicts, this is very important.
Okay.
I mean, we have a lot of companies, German companies, in the occupied eastern Ukrainian territories. People died on the territory of German companies, for instance, when they were, attacked by the terrorists. So this is something we really feel, and this is why we need to solve the issue.
Okay, so Dr. Meladze, from your point of view, business not only needs to be involved to ensure we drive forward the reform agenda and so on, but can really help at a business-to-business level to address these bigger issues. Would you agree with that?
No, our country, we have sure some serious problems, and you know that is occupied 25% of our territory. But anyway, we Georgian businesses very, I think, sustainable cooperation with our colleagues, with all countries. Same time, here was mentioned about communication with the government and social dialogue. Also, because all topics concerning political and economic also issues, it's discussing in Tripartite Commission, where it's head Prime Minister of Georgia. So we thinking together with government how decided this problem, and Georgian business is open for cooperation with all countries, includes Russia, because we nowadays exporting many products in Russia. And we hope that this communication, I agree with our colleagues, that this communication will support for make some serious decision for connected of many people from other countries, and sure, it will be successful for businesses also.
Thank you. From a political perspective, first Deputy Minister and then Minister, how well do you think the dialogue is working between yourselves and the business community? Could it be improved? Would you agree it would not be a mistake to make it less ad hoc, more systematic?
I think that's the best example concerning the Belarus. We have at this forum the biggest delegation. And this delegation were in close cooperation with Ministry of Economy, and I was appointed as the head of this delegation, appointed by business. So it means that we have a very good and constructive dialogue. Of course, there are a lot of issues about regulation, about improvement of institutions. These issues are the same like in other countries, but having a very intensive dialogue with our business, we see the possibility to improve the regulation, of course. And the second issue, I want to say that Mr. Lindner raised, Belarus is really country, Belarus and calls for peaceful Europe. For peaceful Europe, understanding that it's a basic for eliminating risks, it's a basic for long-term development, and this peaceful Europe, we think, should be without dividing lines, without blocks, labels, and stamps. And we call for, of course, extensive economic cooperation on the principles of freedom of trade, investment, financial transaction, on the principles of mutual respect and constructive dialogue between government and business, and of course between all stakeholders that are involved in this dialogue.
Thank you, Minister.
Yes, I think very important geopolitical aspects have been already touched here, but I think it's very important also to establish the permanent dialogue between the business and high-level politicians in every country, and Latvia has been a very good example in this, because деньги не только любят тишину, but also the very understandable and clear rules of the game, and this is the best way how to get the result. I mean, Latvia is implemented several mechanisms that foster dialogue between the politicians and the business that can be also transferred as the examples to the Eastern Partnership countries. For example, we have the Investment Coordination High Council established under the Prime Minister. This is the platform where the foreign investors meet with the politicians, with the Prime Minister, and solve all the technical problems if there arise any. We have the FISO, the Foreign Investors Council, very actively working here, giving the recommendations to the government, and government is strictly following it. Interesting enough that, for example, Georgia is actually much higher on the doing business rating than many of the European Union countries, but for Latvia, these kind of platforms has helped a lot to decrease the bureaucracy, increase the clarity and transparency of the business environment. And one more example, it's the Business Cooperation Council that has been established by our Employers Association within the Latvian Association and the similar organizations in the Eastern Partnership countries.
Question for the next panel, perhaps. Do we need a European version of that? We are almost out of time, but I do want to put you all on the spot before we close. And I want to just be, and this is a question I'm going to ask all our panels today, because you talked, Commissioner, about focus and priorities and being clear about where we need to focus. So, and this is a very mean question, but of all the issues we've discussed, for each of you, and I will ask you first, Professor Lindner, I'll go the reverse way to the way I asked the first question. If you had to identify just one thing that we need to do to strengthen the Eastern Partnership from a business perspective and thus deliver the cooperation, deliver the wider benefits that we've talked about, what for you, and you have half a minute each, what would your key priority be? Professor Lindner first.
Let's create a group of business people from each EP country to have a regular meeting with the Commission, that it's possible to hear what the business community is expecting from the future approaches of the European Commission, and to inform the Commission about the internal problems and issues. So let's have this group of people, 10 people each country, to meet on a regular basis.
Thank you very much. Dr. Meladze, your one priority.
I especially saved this topic at the end because for us here was mentioned about visa liberalization of us. We have a good example. When we had this start with this cooperation without visa with Turkey, our cooperation with Turkish business is immediately increased. Immediate increase. So what we're waiting, businessmen, sure, for cooperation, for future successful results, we need more cooperation with European businesses. But is it maybe impossible without that?
So what the Commissioner said earlier would be music to your ears.
We hope that it will be so.
Thank you so. Markuss, your priority.
Well, I would say deliver on the structural reform agenda. I would say we should scale up the efforts to really deliver on what we still have on the list in order to provide for the investment security and to create for the basis for closer trade investment links.
Thank you very much. First Deputy Minister.
You know, I think that, of course, it's a dialogue. Of course, it's a cooperation at all levels between business, between governments, intensive dialogue, and from dialogue going to concrete decisions and concrete agreements.
Thank you very much indeed. Commissioner, your priority as you look to the future to really realise all the potential we've been talking about?
Well, I have to say it's from talking to doing. From intentions to results, it's all about implementation.
Thank you very much. And Minister, you have the last word.
I would say the technical assistance for structural reforms in the neighboring countries and making the business an important part of the civil society. I refer to one of my favorite keynote speakers this morning that said that it's a very vital and important task to be done.
And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, will you join me in thanking our panel very much indeed? Thank you to you all for a very stimulating start. We're going to take a break in a moment, a coffee break, come back here for 11 o'clock sharp for our next session. But ladies and gentlemen, before we go, could I ask you please, the President has to leave us now, so could I ask you in joining me in saying farewell and thanking him again for his opening speech and his patronage of this event. Mr. President, thank you so much.